Okay, time to fix this guy. I think I'm going to go after the mechanism first, since the amplifier problems are minor, appear to be minor. So we're going to go after this mechanism because, as far as I can tell from out here, the motor is not motoring. That's not a good thing. Could just be frozen up from frozen frozen glue. There we go. Pop this guy off here. Oh boy. Oh, smokes. Whew, that was really stuck on there. No question. This is a pretty easy kind of repair, by the way, this type. The mechanism is relatively simple. A lot of the intelligence is in this wheel here. The wheel is what picks up the arm and moves it around. And you can bet this wheel is stuck. I wouldn't say it's stuck, but it's going to be gooped up. I want to see if this motor turns here. Well, I can turn it by hand. The impression I got is it wasn't turning. So let's re-energize this guy. Switch them on, pray the motor goes. There it goes. Ooh. Okay. And a little doesn't like the off button. Okay. Now it's going. I can't stop it. Actually, it turns pretty nice now. But no doubt it needs lubrication. So first we'll go after this guy here. Let's pop him off. There we go. Didn't go flying. Managed to hang on to it. Let's see if we can lift this thing off. There he comes. And there it is. Now that's supposed to be lubricated nicely, but there's just some dried up brown gunk in there. And a very important part is this part, which travels. Wow. This is the whoa, that's, travels, but it's pretty sticky. But more importantly, there's a roller here that should turn. And a lot of these record players will work with this roller still skidding instead of turning. Sure won't work well. Right down here and get a good close look at it. A little awkward here. My playbook in here. So there it is. That guy there. So it's really a wheel that turns, see? But you know, you could look at one of these that's really stuck, and you'd never realize that that's a roller. And you might imagine it's gonna slide around in that raceway. It's supposed to roll around in the raceway. Easy stuff to fix. I'd like to put alcohol on it. Okay, I'm trying to keep an eye on my camera, and I see it stopped, so I don't know what you missed. You probably missed the part where I found the gold bars inside here and took them out quickly. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about, then you missed the last 5 minutes of my babbling. So I turned the record player up like this after finishing work on the top. I'm just examining it right now to look for anything unusual. But frankly, the whole mechanism is unusual. These all look different. Every time I look at one of these, it's different again. Sometimes the worst case on these things, a spring can be missing. If you're lucky, it's laying in the bottom of the cabinet to clue you into the fact that a spring is missing. But if the spring is completely missing, you can gawk at one of these things and fool around with it forever and not realizing that there's a retention spring missing. It doesn't seem to be the case here though. Okay, so I see a big whack of lubricant right here. No, that's glubricant for sure. It's not really gluey, but it's not really lubricatey either. Sorry for my abuse of the language here. Power's off, yes. So let's work the mechanism a little bit up here and see what we can see. Okay, we're going to lubricate this moving shaft. The sliding surface here, skid surface, needs a little bit of lubrication. Make that work a little bit better. And the rest of this mechanism, which is a little difficult for me to operate from underneath, it can easily be locked. So a little lubricant there. Huge leverage into this area, so even if there's bad lubricant, it's probably going to be okay. This is the part that needs to slide freely, and you really shouldn't have lubricant on it. I think this is what's triggering at the end of the record. And you know, it looks pretty good actually. So, you know, maybe I should take the bottom bearing off this motor. Now, something that really quite often goes wrong with these sets, these record players, is the motor mounts, the rubber motor mounts give out. And I've seen them where they're literally gone. And they often are responsible for the precise positioning of the motor. And the motor has to be in the right position in order to you know, the spindle up above to engage properly with the idler wheel and anything else that's up there. And again, if you don't pay attention to that problem, you can spend a long time fiddling around, getting nowhere. That screw out of there. Holding it on. The screw is still holding it. Has it got a nut up there? I think so. Yes, there's a nut. Fun putting that back together. There's the nut. I think I'll just drop it down there. The whole piece should come out. Sometimes the whole rotor will come out too. Okay, in fact I think this one it will come right out. No, it won't. That's fine though. I can feel the upper bushing by pretending I'm the motor. And it needs a little lubrication too. Now the lower, the bushing if you like, is right here, and these are made to rotate. I don't know if you can see that or not. I'll put the magnifier on to show you this. Interesting feature of these motors. The vast majority are like this. Okay, so this inner sleeve is actually gimbaled. See? And so it will naturally find its own alignment, precise alignment with the motor. Because you want the motor to be running as quiet and smoothly as possible, because you have this pickup, sorry, because you have the the pickup on the record, and any source of noise is going to be transmitted right from the source, right through the frame, cabinet, everything, platter, the whole shebang, the record, right to the needle, and you're going to listen to it. And any of you who are record listeners, I imagine many of you are, you know about the problems with rumble and motor vibration. So this shouldn't be terribly loose. It doesn't need to be. It kind of sets itself in place and then sits there. Get the old goop out. Actually, I like my new term, lubricant. That's a great term. And we'll put in, we could put oil, but I'm going to put a little bit of grease in there. I like that a little better. Just get the goop off my fingers here. And the lubricant I use is automobile axle grease. Okay, we'll set that aside because I think we'll be using more of it shortly. And that's all there is to fixing the lower bearing. Just making sure that's nice and clean, and it is. Pretty good. On we go. Put in the upper screw first, because that one has a captive nut. Okay, but we won't tighten it right down. Now we'll go for the nut. Has a locking washer just to make it even more difficult for me. You can almost get at it from the top. So if we really have trouble here, I might take a run at it from the top. Okay, so first I'm going to get this washer on. I don't know if I got that on or not. Why is the screw tightening? Oh. No, apparently I didn't get it on. It's still on my finger. Nice long wires in this one. A lot of these are so restricted when you lift the board out. These wires just aren't long enough to get much access to anything. Okay, a little better access this way. And I dropped it. Let's tip it a little bit that way and have gravity help me. And I'm going to put it on using a plier, I think. Okay, that's on. That's actually the easy part. Now I gotta get this nut on. How am I gonna get down there? Same thing, I'm gonna use pliers. Oh, I just barely got a grip of it here. I'm sure I'm gonna drop it. Okay, I got a better grip this time. See? You may have to use grippier pliers here. Well, that's perfect. I can just turn the screw now, and of course I can't. Don't fall out, screw. Be my friend here. Here we go. The magnetism in my pliers pulled the lock washer off. How's that for? Okay. Let's go back through the process here. Lock washer first. Pretty important to get the lock washer on there. The motor is going to vibrate a little bit. In the long run, it may shake itself loose, so the lock washer is pretty important. Okay, okay. Looks good, come on. Okay, cross-threaded, but it's on there. Let's just back it up. Go forward. Okay, tighten that guy. Tighten up this guy. Looks good. Now I got to get a little lubrication down into the bearing on the top. This will allow the motor to deliver its full strength. to the mechanism. Goop. I think I missed. Shouldn't have done that. Should have had this up like this. Oh, I did get a little bit in there. That looks pretty good. Just mop up a little bit here. What do I do with my pliers? Yeah, the motor is spinning nicely now, nice and free. Idler is good. You know, some record players, when you turn them off, they push the idle wheel off the shaft here. Others just leave it up against it. If you have a record player and it leaves the idler up against the spindle for like 5 years, you'll get a divot or a dent in your idler, and then you hear thump, 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 thump. And it's delivered right to the platter, which is delivered right to the cartridge. It comes out the speakers. This one's good though. This one must have an automatic pull off. Some of them have a setting, a neutral setting. You really need to park these things in neutral, or you're going to have trouble. I doubt there's too many people playing these things regularly. Hey, there's where my pliers went. Now I got a few more lubrication jobs under here to do. One was this part in here. It slides up these skids here. Now that's moving pretty good now. This guy here with his old goop. My fingers all greased up. You sort of can't get the old goop out from under here too easily. As much of it off as we can. Suppose I could pull that off and separate those parts. Looks like there's enough play for that. Let's do that. Pull this off. Don't go anywhere. There we are. Put them down here. I'm always a little nervous doing this because you get unexpected results sometimes. There we are. Now we can. And that comes right out of there. We won't do that. Just clean them up. He's all happy. you can kind of see the rub spots, so you can kind of tell where the lubricant is needed. Don't want to put too much in there. Someday that'll be the new lubricant. And now can we get under there? Okay, I'm not sure how effective that was. Okay, quite sure that went back the same way it was. Wasn't too much to that mechanism. Got that on. Okay, now we're left with down this area. Get some of this sticky stuff off here. Dust everywhere. Still. Okay. Now, as I mentioned before, some of these parts are not meant to be lubricated. This guy right here. You can usually tell which parts are not to be lubricated because they're loose and floppy and they have no evidence of lubrication on them in the first place. If someone's gone ahead and lubricated them, and this is quite common, I may have done it myself, then in the long run that lubricant will probably glue the part down, and since it's supposed to be moved by almost no pressure, it's being moved by the tone arm being pulled across by the record. I mean, there's not a lot of power there. If there's any stickiness to that mechanism, you're going to have trouble. Another thing too is when you turn these upside down or onto a funny angle, some of the parts they fall into a position that's not normal. So you could be troubleshooting something and not realizing that if you put it upright, parts would drop slightly and engage a little differently. I've had one that drove me nuts. So for that, I actually have a stand I built in a mirror. I can take it, stick it on top of the stand and look into the mirror and see up underneath what's going on. But frankly, no matter what I do, I find these things pretty hard to understand, really, the mechanics of it all. So there's something kind of funny happened there. So I think we're going to put a little grease down there, I think. When I said something funny, this component moved and locked itself into a new condition, I guess you could say. Whoa. And I have had the odd turntable kind of lock up because it was fiddled with a little bit and got into a illogical or a state or status, whatever you want to call it, it should never be in. And once it gets into that state, mechanics can lock or something like that. That's a tough one to figure out too. Okay, I think we're time to give it. It's time to give it another try here. So we'll lift this up. We'll set it back in. There he is. Wait a minute. Is anybody yelling at me? Wait a minute, Jim, you forgot something. Yes, I did. I forgot a major part here. Oh, wait a minute. The reason I forgot it is because it goes in on the top here. So that's the cam, which has been still has alcohol floating around in it. So I want to get rid of that at this point. I'm trying to keep an eye on my camera, catch it if it stops again. Okay, so that's really cleaned out nice now. And this wheel is not good. It was stuck there again, so I'm going to put something a little more powerful into it. Just a liquid wrench. Which is a more powerful solvent. Liquid wrench, you're supposed to use that on frozen nuts and bolts and that. Okay, we'll spin this and soak up some of the excess. Spin it to work it down inside there. So you can't take this off and clean it out. It's permanent. That feels pretty good though. I think I can actually start to feel some of the play in it. And we'll put a little dab of new grease here. And this should encounter grease when it's traveling around inside the can. So it should stay pretty greased up. Put a fair bit in here. If you're hearing lots of creaking, that's my family up above me here. I'm down in my shop. There we are. This piece is good. See, there's no lubrication on this piece. This is another piece that is pushed very lightly. You don't want to put lubrication on it. No, no, no. Next trick is how to set this so that this goes in here properly. And you can see it's at its extreme travel. It's at the far side of its little slot. So we'll match it up with the far side of this. Oh, one more thing. I need to put some lubrication right in here. That's quite important. Down you go. And there we are. I think that's okay. Why isn't it setting all the way down? It has to go down far enough that I can get at the Now, why is it grinding like that? not much to it. There it goes. Okay. Don't know. I guess it just wasn't quite going in the into the raceway there. It's in there now. Put that guy on. Feels pretty good. Now's a good time to do a little cleanup on this too, because in just a moment it's going to be tougher. Okay, that's good enough for a test, that's for sure. Pretty dirty, eh? Yuck. Power's off right now. Doesn't feel like the, oh yeah, there we are. Now don't turn them backwards. Release the arm. Put on the power. Putting on the power at full strength. Need everything we can in this motor. Look at that. Come on. Come on. You can do it. Come on. Apparently you can't do it. What happened there? Well, the motor's failing to drive the platter, and it's probably because the idler spring is too weak. And it's not ramming up hard enough against the motor spindle. Very little tug there. Apparently off is not off on this thing either. Why would that be?